So Black Ops 7, I wanted to say 6. Black Ops 7 had its early access beta. And according to most metrics, specifically comparing it to like Battlefield 6's beta that they had earlier this year, just a handful of weeks ago, it's not doing as well as you would have thought for Call of Duty, which is one of the biggest games out there. Now, this is given two specific metrics. For one, like Steam concurrent users, which we can track. Counterpoint to that is obviously a lot of people play Call of Duty either on console or they play it through Battle.net, through like the Xbox app or something. So they don't play through Steam directly. Sure, fair point. I think a lot of people do play through Steam, but sure, maybe the majority are playing on other platforms. So we can maybe discount these numbers that we'll look at in just a second on that regard. The other one that is platform agnostic is Twitch viewership and engagement, which is also quite telling. So what happened? Well, Black Ops 7's beta debuted, as Insider Gaming has put it, to woeful numbers on two major platforms. Again, specifically Steam and Twitch, if we look at those. So as you can see, on Steam, Call of Duty has produced a 24-hour peak of just under 75,000 users. By comparison, Battlefield 6's peak at the same point during the early access beta window was around 335,000. 335, hold on. Quick algorithmic check. 335. Okay. 75. Yep, that's what we're dealing. This is bigger. Confirmed. So given that, we know the number is bigger. They also say, on Twitch, Black Ops 7 has 185,000 views at the time of publishing, while at a similar time in the beta window, Battlefield 6 had 504,000 players or viewers.
ASA donated $3.
Well, thank you.
I tried the Battlefield 6 beta and Black Ops 7 beta. The former impressed me on multiple levels, and I acknowledge that it's been a while since a good Battlefield game was released.
True.
Black Ops 7 just felt like Infinite Warfare.
Oh, it cut off. I think a lot of people, and we'll talk about the nuance of this in just a second, but looking at the viewership, 185,000 viewers versus 504 at the peak on Twitch. And even now, I mean, what are we dealing with? Let's see. There's 96,000 right now. You can see it just spiked again. Yesterday, average daily. Okay. And so there's people like Lyric who are at 14,000. Tim the Tatman's at 9,100. Nade Shots at 4,000. Nick Merckx is at 3,000. Scump is at 10,000. So like there's a handful of pretty big streamers. Symphony is at 1,800. Might have just started. So there's some big streamers on here playing, and they're chilling, doing like by most accounts pretty solid numbers. But I think it is just fascinating that there's so much more interest, at the very least, in Battlefield 6. Now, there's a difference between interest and like their actual commitment of buying or playing. There's a difference. There's also just a general curiosity. A lot of people were talking about Battlefield 6. That does not necessarily mean that a lot of people are going to buy it at full price, right? Like a lot of Call of Duty fans are interested in being like, what's this about? They check it out and they're like, yeah, I liked it, but I play Call of Duty every year. And so they just go there. So I genuinely, looking at this, I don't think this is necessarily like terrible news for Call of Duty. Obviously the headline is going to do well because like people are kind of rooting for Call of Duty to fail, but I think it's more a point of praise for Battlefield. Not necessarily a diss on Call of Duty, just more a point of praise for Battlefield, that there is that much interest and engagement on it. People want to see an alternative to Call of Duty sort of arise. And I think competition is really, really healthy. And I think it's going to force Call of Duty to make some changes that will be helpful and will be good. Just like with Marvel Rivals coming out, it forced Overwatch to make some much needed quality of life improvements to the game, when previously they were just kind of sitting on their hands, not seemingly doing a whole lot. So I think that this is good. Futuristic Nicki Minaj skin incoming. They'll eventually do it for sure. They'll eventually do it. I think like there was never going to be any world in which, like, as some people framed it, Call of Duty is dead, Battlefield 6 takes over. That was never going to happen. Call of Duty is so huge, it would never happen like that. But what would happen is that Battlefield 6 comes out and gets a little sliver of market share. And then next year with Battlefield, or the year after with Battlefield 7, they get a little bit more market share. And all along the way, as they start to get more market share and more players shifting over and committing to Battlefield over Call of Duty, then you start to see Call of Duty trying harder and making some like pro consumer and pro audience moves and stuff that the community has wanted and asked for a long time, cracking down harder on cheaters and coming up with some fix for skill-based matchmaking if you consider that a problem. And so I think that there was never going to be a situation where like overnight Call of Duty Black Ops 7 only sells 500,000 copies. Like that literally could never happen. It's just that huge at this point. So it's not necessarily too big to fail. It's that it's too big to flop. I think it can underperform. I think it could get to the point where like player engagement falls off and they start to see recurrent spending drop off and people will start to shift over and experiment with other stuff. But at the end of the day, competition is good. Everybody should be rooting for Battlefield 6 to do well because it's going to force Call of Duty to do better. And, you know, for Battlefield to be hungry is good because it means that they're also going to try pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think all of that is a good thing. And hopefully it just ends up with better games at the end of the day, which we can only hope for, right? That's all we can hope for. Easy win for the Battlefield 6 campaign over Black Ops 7, I'm telling you right now. Oh, we'll see. I'm with all of these, I'm like, I don't know if it's even worth like really getting that engaged in it because it's probably like they're both probably going to be like 3 hours long. You know, like I'm just braced for them to be hilariously short and probably like lackluster or fine, but nothing that crazy. Black Ops 7 has already sold roughly 420,000 units, excluding PC, and made an estimated $31.5 million in the US alone. Hard to say that that's good or bad for the publisher's KPIs, but so far it doesn't seem too bad. We'll see how it develops. Yeah, I mean, it's for something like Black Ops 7, I think the worst thing for them would be if they saw player engagement dropping off. Like if they saw players dropping it after a couple of weeks, or they stopped spending on season passes and they stopped spending on this and that, that's when they would get really, really worried. Yeah, I don't know how many copies they've sold or what their expectations are, but it's the recurrent revenue that they're keeping a very close eye on. So, yeah.